A new poll shows that young, college-educated Americans are more likely to think that the actions, even the violence, of protesters are justified. Monmouth University conducted the poll in the last few days of May, asking if the violence that swept across the country, including the burning of a police precinct and burning of police cars, was fully or partially justified or not. A majority said the violence was at least partially justified. The 18 to 34 age group leaned toward answering justified more than the 35 to 54 age group. The poll results come as Campus Reform news site reports that a number of college professors nationwide have supported Antifa rioters, with some even offering to post bail for those arrested. Joining us now from Campus Reform is Eduardo Neret. He's a digital reporter there, along with our panel of the day, Sarah Kim and Scott Walker. Eduardo, based on who you're speaking to on college campuses, how are people justifying violence that we saw just last week?
Well, it's interesting to see what students think and why they support it. So obviously that poll is very alarming because while we want our students to be politically engaged and while we want them to participate in our democracy, we don't want them committing violence. And so there's some concern there that if students graduate and they think the violence is okay now, will they resort to violence in their own future when they see a political problem that they don't like? And so that's what we've seen from students. But right now we're also seeing students call to defund and cut ties with campus police. So this is happening at schools like the University of Illinois, Northwestern University, and Ohio State University. And this is concerning, but I think what the biggest problem here is that students fail to realize is that if you get rid of campus police, who is going to protect them? If there's a crime on or near campus, who are they going to call? So we see a lot of students jumping into radical positions. We see them taking positions that they really haven't seemed to thought through as a result of the George Floyd death. And unfortunately, it's resulting in some questionable and highly concerning potential effects going forward in the future.
And Eduardo, I mean, you'd be talking to these people. Of course, there are feelings that come forward when you see the video of the death of George Floyd. When you see these instances caught on camera, you have an immediate gut reaction to what's going on. And as college students, I'm sure you'd want to make a change for the next generation. You'd want to enter a community that is safe and the police respect everyone who they're serving. But why are we hearing only this side of the narrative? And it doesn't seem as though the full picture is being explained to college students.
We're hearing this because everywhere college students turn, they are getting this message. So for several years at the Leadership Institute's Campus Reform, we've talked about how professors and university administrators on college campuses have shown sympathy to some of these more radical and extreme movements. Students hear it from their professors. Students go to their peers and hear these things as well. And when you've been taught for years that America is a racist country and that police have a role to play in that and that law enforcement has a role to play in that, they see that as a green light. Like, here's our chance to change that. I've been told all my life this is the problem. I want to change it. They're also seeing it on social media and from their favorite Hollywood celebrities. There's been a lot of reporting about celebrities like John Legend who have given money to bail out some of these rioters and more violent protesters. And so everywhere these students turn, they're seeing this message. And in their minds, that is the justification. That is the green light for them to participate because they think they're joining their friends, their professors, and everyone else in the country who's doing this. They are not getting the other side.
Yeah, it seems that that's the problem. We are hearing a lot of left-leaning perspectives on these college campuses. And Sari, I wonder, if the conservative voice is really having a chance to even be heard in these situations.
So I think we can look at these college students from a bifurcated lens. I mean, first and foremost, the point of college is so that you can test normative theories. And as a conservative who went to the University of Texas, a liberal bastion, you are allowed to be put in an incubator where you can test it. The concern is that certain voices are being amplified by the media and getting attention. So I would say to all of us, we should be equally amplifying other voices and not just focus on one narrative. And the second part of that is less than 63% of high school students who graduate into college can read. Less than 25% of them can name one of the three branches of government, let alone all three. And so what I would say as we address the issues of college students and what they are looking and studying is that we need to educate our students, period, on the basics, essentials of society that we're not doing in high school.
Yeah. Another poll result that came from Campus Reform, Eduardo, as you'd been mentioning, was the support for Antifa. the group Antifa, and you'd mentioned before, that you'd been seeing recruiting tables almost for people to answer questions about what this organization might be. So, Governor Walker, I ask you the question, what danger could this present once people actually leave college campuses if you are being not recruited per se, but at least having these conversations that extreme rioting is okay?
Well, seeing what happened the other day in Minneapolis and being upset about it is a good thing. In fact, I think there's hardly any dispute. I've heard people all across the political spectrum be outraged about that and similar cases in the past. But to make the leap to now somehow say that anarchy or taking apart police departments is the answer, I think will actually cause more damage. Long term, if you look at who will the people who will be negatively affected the most, if you get rid of the police department, if you get rid of law and order, it's people overwhelmingly living in low-income neighborhoods, which is disproportionately people of color in our nation. And so we need to do more to make sure that people have the training, they have the expertise, that we monitor to make sure that law enforcement are doing the things that we would expect anyone to do. But we also need to make sure that there's a presence in all of our communities. What we've seen in the past, in other cases, in other communities, is when there have been these riots, there have been this pushback. Sadly, in many of those neighborhoods, you don't see the grocery stores coming back. You don't see the department stores coming back. You don't see the pharmacies and other vital things that are needed in those communities. That's the last thing that should happen out of this. But if Antifa and others have their way, it's like a scorched earth policy. They just want to burn things up, start all sorts of chaos, and that doesn't serve anyone's interest.
Yeah. In 30 seconds, Eduardo, I'm just interested to hear how you've been viewing social media when it comes to maybe college-age students posting in regards to the protests that we've seen.
Well, right now there's a big mob mentality, not only on social media, but on campuses. So to the point of, are there students out there who disagree with this? Are there students who would not take part in this radical fringe element? I think there are. But right now they're afraid to speak up because, like you said, there are a lot of people right now protesting who have emotional reactions to Mr. Floyd's death, and rightfully so. And so they don't want to go out against that because they're going to be brandished on their campuses as racist or as these people who agreed with what happened. So I think there's an element of the mob mentality. Unfortunately, the other side is afraid to speak out, but we need them to on campuses to show the other side, to show information, and to show information, like Governor Walker said, that if you get rid of police, you're only going to hurt poor minority communities.
Yeah. And college campuses as well. I mean, you want to make sure that those are safe when you're walking around and going to class. All right, that's Eduardo Neret. Thank you for joining us. He's the editor at Campus Reform. We've also got Sarah Kim and Scott Walker today. Stick around, a lot more to discuss after this.